Now, going into this season, there were really only a couple thoughts that I had dwelling in my mind of what the Jets were going to have to do and what type of situations that they were going to be facing going into this year's offense. Because this year being a shortened season due to the whole COVID and the pandemic and whatnot, it was an interesting thought I had because it was like, well, this is not going to be as long as a season. The offseason is going to come quicker. This is a very crazy offseason that we're about to jump into due to the fact that the Seattle Kraken will be having their expansion draft. Not only will the Seattle Kraken be taking in their expansion draft and the Jets are going to have to do all their protection and whatnot, you're going to have to do the trade deadline, the crammed North Division, all these thoughts I had going into this season. Yet there was one thought that just stayed in the back of my mind that I almost constantly thought on from time to time as a fan of this team. And that was what the Jets were going to do with Adam Lowry and Andrew Copp. Because I believe that to have a successful NHL team that can win the Stanley Cup and compete for the Stanley Cup year in and year out, you need to have very, very good, effective scoring in your bottom six. I don't think that there's anyone that will argue that, but if you are going to argue that, I'd love to hear your point on that, because I think that if you don't have scoring in your bottom six, you'll never win a cup, in my opinion. And the Jets are one of the best and deepest teams offensively in the NHL, and they have been for a long time. And one of the most underrated offensive gems within that bottom six has been Andrew Copp, a Winnipeg Jets product drafted back in 2013 in the 4th round, 104th overall. He has been nothing but consistent and growing his abilities over the last few seasons, and same with Adam Lowry as well. But this isn't a video where I talk about how good Andrew Copp and Adam Lowry are, because I've already done that a ton of times. This is a video where I talk about what I think and might share my thoughts on how I believe the Jets will pursue the angles of negotiation with Andrew Copp in this upcoming off-season, where he will be set to be a restricted free agent. Now, what makes Andrew Copp an interesting player is the fact that the Winnipeg Jets just signed Adam Lowry to a 5-year, $3.250 million extension that will carry till 2025-2026. And what makes that interesting is the fact that that's a very, very little raise from where Adam Lowry currently is right now in his contract, making $2,916,000 basically, with a little bit of change as well. And why I say bring that up is because recently, well, not recently, I guess I should say, but near the start of the season, I made a video talking about what I thought the Jets would do and how they would have to pay and whatnot, both those players going into this offseason. And now with Adam Lowry being signed at a very, very good cap hit, at a very little bit of a raise, and let me mind you is that as well, there's a little bit more flexibility with Andrew Copp and whether or not the Jets choose to sign him and keep him long-term, similar to what they did with Adam Lowry, or whether or not they pursue other options in free agency as well. And I think whether or not the Jets signing and keeping Andrew Copp around for the next, few years has nothing really to do with the term, in my opinion. I think it has to do with the fact that are the Winnipeg Jets, Cheveldayoff, Paul Maurice, and as the organization that they are they going to move forward with Andrew Copp being this guy that can bounce around between the first line, second line, and third line, a guy who's played everywhere, who has really good chemistry with Mark Scheifele, who is the defensive kind of mindset of Scheifele. They're almost like the yin and the yang. Andrew Copp is the defensive side of Scheifele, while Mark Scheifele, is the offensive side of that coin. And when you look at what Andrew Copp brings offensively even, he is a very underrated player, having a career year this year so far, setting his career high in goals and assists. Is a very good year for him, especially not the fact that it's a contract year, so, yay if you're a Jets fan. Nonetheless, though, in 45 games played this year, 14 goals, 20 assists for 34 points, a career high for Andrew Copp, and having a stellar season, like I said, playing from the first line to the third line and being great on every line. And why I think Andrew Copp is an interesting case is that when you look back at his past years and how he's just played overall, I'm a big Andrew Copp fan, and I have been for a long time. The only problem I find myself getting back to with Andrew Copp is whether or not the Jets are going to pay him like a top 6 forward or pay him like a depth forward that he is. You see, I'm okay giving Andrew Copp maybe $4 million. I'm not okay giving Andrew Copp $5.5 million, or even $5 million, or even more than $4 million, in my opinion. I think Andrew Copp, although being a very good complementary piece to a cup contending team, isn't a top 6 winger. And I say that with the utmost respect to his game, because I think he can, while being very capable of jumping in and helping out due to injuries and whatnot, consistently at times when you watch the way he plays, sometimes he doesn't have the best games and he just, doesn't keep up to the pace that is being set by the skill level the other forwards have in the Winnipeg Jets top six. Guys like Nikolai Ehlers, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, even Blake Wheeler to an extent. There's Pierre-Luc Dubois, like the list goes on, right? All of these guys, while being immensely better than Andrew Copp, and no shame there to say that, the Jets are going to have to find themselves in an interesting situation. Now that Lowry is making a very cheap contract, they know what their third-line center is going to be. And if you're paying your third-line center, one of the most underrated third-line centers in the NHL, $3.25 million on a guy who is also having a great year this year, it brings up the question on whether or not the Jets are actually going to be able to keep Andrew Copp and whether or not they believe they're going to be able to keep Andrew Copp. Because look at Adam Lowry. I want you guys to take this into consideration. Adam Lowry took a massive pay cut, in my opinion, in a year where he's been in a renaissance year for him. Let's be real. 8 goals, 12 assists in 45 games played for 20 points, having a much improved season from last year. Even going back to 2018-19 and 17-18, almost matching his point totals from that season. His career high is 29 points, only 9 points shy of that. Now, obviously, Adam Lowry probably isn't going to be able to tie that this year and go on a massive, insane offensive streak and tie and break his point total. But the point is that Adam Lowry is having a very good year on both sides of the ice, in my opinion. And when you have a guy like Andrew Copp who is having the exact same type of year but better offensively, and Adam Lowry took a pay cut to play $3.25 for the next 5 years, it's obviously, very easy to see where the arrow is pointing on Andrew Copp's salary. And I have to say that if the Jets are going to want to be a competitive team moving forward, I don't think investing in Andrew Copp is the smart decision. And like I said, I say that with the utmost respect to Andrew Copp and his game, because I love Andrew Copp and I think he's a great player, and I'm very happy he's on the Jets, and I don't want to play against him. But that being said, the Jets have tons of prospects that are coming through the system right now. Guys like Christian Vesalainen, David Gustafsson, Jansen Harkins, the list goes on of potential players that can push the pen forward and push the pendulum and jump into the lineup sooner than later. Not even mentioning the fact that the Jets have forward Cole Perfetti, who is absolutely killing it this year with the Moose. Killing it with the Moose, mind you, where he's not even supposed to be in the AHL due to the whole age restriction. A 19-year-old in the AHL in 24 games played has 17 points. 17 points as a 19-year-old. He's not even supposed to be playing in this league. The potential with Perfetti even jumping into the lineup next year is a possibility. Now, some Jets fans might be thinking, whoa, that seems like a stretch. But you don't know with forwards, right? We've seen in the past where guys like Connor Scheifele, even Ehlers, have gotten the opportunity to jump into the lineup and play as those top forward prospects. And I have a lot of faith in Cole Perfetti and the way that the Jets are going to be able to use him as a dynamic offensive weapon who can play the center and play the wing. And when you have a guy like that coming through, a guy who you're going to have to pay, Pierre-Luc Dubois, after next season, coming off of his $6.5 million after Pierre-Luc Dubois comes off of his $5 million contract next year, he's going to be a restricted free agent. What do you give Pierre-Luc Dubois a raise? How does he have a better year next year that he settles in with the Jets? There's so many hypotheticals and possibilities with this club going into next season with the prospects that could push the roster. Guys, like I said already, depth prospects, and then top tier prospects like Perfetti potentially making a move more impactfully sooner than what we thought. It brings up the question on whether or not Andrew Copp is the best decision for this team moving forward. And I don't say that with, very lightly, because I think that Andrew Copp is a great player, and I do want to keep him here. He's only 26 years old. Mind you that. He's younger than Lowry. So if Andrew Copp wants to stay in Winnipeg, and it can be signed for a pretty reasonable contract, maybe around 4.2 is probably the max I would give him, I would say, for what he brings to as an NHL guy for depth and where he plays in the lineup. I think that would be fair, but I just don't want to see the Jets commit a lot of money, 5-year term, even potentially like what we saw with Lowry, unless the contract is maybe not much more than that or similar. Because although Andrew Copp is the better offensive player, in my opinion, Adam Lowry does bring a lot to his two-way game, and he's a valuable center. Like I said, one of the most underrated centers in the league. So a lot of people have been asking me my thoughts on this, whole Andrew Copp situation and what I think the Jets should do going forward. And the honest answer is that you keep Copp if it's a good price. That's my honest answer. I have I'm not against keeping Copp at all unless the price makes sense, in my opinion. You don't sign Copp because he's been with the team for a long time and all that jazz. You keep Copp because he wants to stay and because the contract makes sense. Do not overpay Andrew Copp as a top 6 winger for the next 40 years, because we have a top 6 winger moving forward within the Moose in Cole Perfetti. Potentially even with guys like Christian Vesalainen as well, who still, in my opinion, have untapped potential, who we could see harness who have very good games that could very much adapt well to the NHL. So there are a lot of variables, there are a lot of different things you have to think about. But when you look at the players we have pushing the roster sooner than later, the guys we already have on the team, potentially even guys like Stastny who might want to come around for another go next season, who is a UFA this year, who will obviously be on a much cheaper contract than 6.5 since he's 35 years old. There's a lot of different options the Jets could do. And while I'm completely on board with keeping Andrew Copp, it has to be at the right price point, and it has to make sense term-wise, because we've got so many young players trying to push this lineup. Keeping Andrew Copp as that guy, that third liner who's making per se. Let's say Chevy pays him $4.5 million per se. Like, that's his asking price, or he gets close to that. And then Cole Perfetti comes in, and he becomes a monster, and he becomes a consistent staple in the top six. You're paying Andrew Copp to be a decent offensive weapon on a third line, $4.5 million, and a team already loaded with offensive weapons and a very weak defense. So I think investing the money in other places and looking at what we have could be an option as well. There's just so many different variables with this. I'm all for keeping Andrew Copp. It's just got to make sense with the term and the price. If it doesn't, you have to let him walk, and you have to be prepared to let him walk, because we can't invest a ton of our future and a ton of our future cap into a guy who could be potentially stuck on the third line because better, younger players are passing him from our system. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, Jets fans, as always. What are your thoughts about Andrew Copp and his potential contract, and whether or not you think the Jets should sign him? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section below, as always. If you're a fan of the Winnipeg Jets, but more importantly, a fan of hockey regardless of the team you root for, definitely consider dropping a subscription, as we're on our way towards 1K subscribers, and any support you guys can give the channel is greatly appreciated. Make sure to follow all my socials down in the description. All the links that you would need to follow me are down there at your own will to use, so use them as you would. I will see you guys in the next video. Remember to leave a comment, turn on notifications if you haven't already. Peace, love, and positivity as always, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you in the next video. Go Jets, go.